There have been violent scenes across the United States in response to the death of a black man, George Floyd, in police custody. Protesters have broken an overnight curfew in Minneapolis after several nights of unrest. Violent protests have spread to at least 20 cities across America. George Floyd, who was not armed, died on Monday after a police officer, Derek Chauvin, who is white, was shown in footage kneeling on his neck. The officer's been sacked, arrested and now charged with murder. Let's get a sense of how widespread the unrest is. It's spread from the east to west coast of the US. Minneapolis has seen 4 nights of riots. Violent protests have also hit other major cities, including Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, Houston, Louisville and Denver. Well, this is the scene as dawn breaks, fires burning in the street. Our correspondent, in fact, these are the pictures that we've just got in the last few minutes, and you can see smoke billowing from the buildings there and a fire down the street. So our correspondent, Barbara Plett-Usher, is there in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis is under curfew, but the city is still burning. Outrage over the police killing of an unarmed black man has consumed people here for 4 days, with street protests, but also arson and looting. The state deployed the National Guard to restore order, and local officials moved unusually quickly to charge the police officer with third-degree murder and manslaughter. He's the one in the video kneeling on the neck of George Floyd for nearly 9 minutes while Mr. Floyd cried out again and again that he couldn't breathe, and then stopped moving.
The governor of Minnesota has said that he expects swift justice. But the question is whether that will be enough to quell the rage that was ignited here and is now spreading across the country. America is looking at a long, tense weekend.
The protests have spread and grown. In Los Angeles, demonstrators clashed with police officers. In Manhattan, they marched also in memory of Eric Garner, a New York man who gasped for air in a police chokehold before he died. And in Atlanta, one of the country's biggest protests suddenly turned violent, angering the mayor.
So what I see happening on the streets of Atlanta is not Atlanta. This is not a protest. This is not in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. This is chaos.
The wave of demonstrations reached right to the president's doorstep. The White House was under lockdown late Friday evening. Earlier, Mr. Trump gave his first extensive remarks on the protests.
Can't allow a situation like happened in Minneapolis to descend further into lawless anarchy and chaos, and we understand that very well. It's very important, I believe, to the family, to everybody, that the memory of George Floyd be a perfect memory.
America is reeling in the middle of a pandemic, suffering its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and now once again watching its racial fault lines explode. Barbara Plett-Usher, BBC News, Minneapolis.
Well, in the last few hours, the mayor of Minneapolis spoke at a news conference and made an impassioned plea for calm.
If you care about your community, you got to put this to an end. It needs to stop. You're not getting back at the police officer that tragically killed George Floyd by looting a town. You're not getting back at anybody. If you have a friend or a family member that is out right now, call them, tell them to come home. It is not safe. It is not right. If we care about our city, let's do the right thing now.
The mayor of Minneapolis.